Hey, what's going on, Patreons? Today I'm just going to make a really short video just showing you how I go about creating the base maps. Not the actual finished product, but something that helps me get a base layout of how everything is quickly generated. That way I can start focusing on little details that matter down the road. And right now, this is not a completely, finished product. This is just something I quickly whipped up so I can give y'all an example. Right now, obviously, it's top water. This does not look that great in the background. These are just high peaks, which I don't like. Um, but yeah, all right. So let me come down here, and you'll see down here at the very bottom in this little graph. It's just literally, if I move that out of the way, it's 2, 4, 5 nodes, and then the final node right here, which actually the height node actually makes everything happen over here on the actual scene. Okay, so for example, let's say we want to get this bottom really stuff really far down. Let's get it, a little bit higher up. If we come to this curve right here, you can actually like double click and stuff, and you can, literally just like that. Now we got a whole new terrain. Obviously, this isn't pretty, but that just goes to show how powerful this is. A lot of procedural stuff involved, which in the actual game is not going to be procedural. This just gives me it helps me get the base terrain for the underwater scenes and the islands and all that quickly generated. That way, then I can go in and hand detail everything. So, for example, I start dragging it around, trying to find a good, nice little layout. See, now the peaks are still too high, but that'd probably be this curve over here. Yeah, see, I'm dropping some of them down now. If you're wondering why it looks like it's spiking, I'll show you that in a second on the how the terrain's like looks like it's breaking in half and stuff. I'll show you why. You see all these not white, but these blue lines? These are individual terrain chunks. Each one is a kilometer in size. So, for example, this square right here is 1 kilometer squared. This one's 1 kilometer squared, and so forth, so forth. And I could make it procedure generate if I hit generate infinite terrain right here. It'll generate indefinitely forever for as long as, the accuracy within the precision is there. But I'm not using that in this case because I'm going to hand make everything. So disable that. But I can change resolutions and stuff like that. This is a really cool program. And yeah, it speeds up workflow so much more. And I can also put like erosion and all that, but I'm not going to do that just right now because that's a very intensive process. So I do that at the end whenever I get everything set up the way I like and stuff. But yeah, all right. My goal is for this region of the map, I want to have just a couple little islands, not too many. And like right now, this is way too many, and I do not like this. But the thing is, if I come back down underwater, and I like this result. I'm saying if I like it, then I'll just go back up here. Then I'll just start, fleshing out some of the details, like getting some of these islands out, and that kind of stuff. Because naturally, with procedural generation, you get what it gives you. You have some kind of control, but it's good for the base generating. So I don't have to go and hand do all these little mountains and hills, and that's way too much work. That'd take too much time. So I use this as a process to speed up the workflow. So if I come back over here, like I can, twist this around, See that's probably a little bit better. It's not everything's too steep and that kind of stuff. The islands, there's not as many of them. See, if I come over here, now look at the map. I could probably be happy if I get rid of, 5 of them over on the left-hand side and, maybe 3 or 4 on the right-hand side. Just have a few islands, not too close, but spread out a good distance apart. I'm fine with that. I would be happy with that. So, yeah. I'm going to show you all a couple other things. I mean, let's do some erosion. See what this looks like. Because it'll change everything drastically. So if we come over down here, And I add an erosion node. I'm just trying to give y'all an insight in how these things are done. Because, I mean, yeah, I can go and hand do all these little hills, but no, that just takes too long. So if I come here and put that in there, and I just hook it directly into the height. And we'll tell by this little circle down over here at the bottom left. Oh, the erosion's done, or it's getting done. There we go. So you can tell now the terrain, you can see like these little crevices on the mountainsides or the hills, whatever you want to call it. So it just adds a little, detail to the resolution of it. Obviously, this does not look that pretty. It's pretty sharp. So what I will do in this case, just for showing y'all, come here, find out where the base one's over there, okay? And what's really cool is if I just turn off the water for now. As you can tell, we got all these terrains right here. And remember how I was talking about infinite generation? I can literally come here and just, generate, let it generate. It'll generate this chunk for me. So it's all dynamically done whenever I want it to. So I don't have to generate infinite. I could just be like, hey, this is how many terrains I want. This is the size I want. And yeah. So let me just disable all these real quick because I want to show y'all something. Should probably make the camera faster, honestly. But this is always let me make the camera faster. It's too slow. There we go. This right here is 1 square kilometer. Okay. As you can tell, we still got our erosion and all that. Remember how before I was talking about it wasn't that good at quality? And it's not. I mean, if you look at this, it's pretty ugly, honestly. I'm not even talking about that black line. That's just the smoothing from the shader. There's really no getting around that. But it all coincides with the resolution of the height map. Which all I got to do to change that is come over here and let's put it on 2048. And it may give it an entirely different result because now there's more resolution, so more things could happen too. So we just let that finish real quick. And since it's a higher resolution, we went from 512 to 2048, so my math could be off in this, but I think that's 4 to 6 times more resolution, I believe. My math could be off in that. I haven't really done the math on that in a long time. It's still generating. See how much longer it takes? Just because there's a lot more resolution going into it. Yep, there we go. Made a big difference. Now, as you can tell, there's still, some little sharp edges, artifacts that we call them, but it's not as noticeable now. And plus, there's a lot more detail going on here. Instead of just being smooth, and let me show you. Let me go back in just a second. We'll get a good look at this real quick. As you can tell, there's a lot more detail going into the actual terrain now. A lot more highly detailed. So now if we go back to the 512, you'll notice a big difference. Won't take as long this time. It'll pretty much be done. See, look at that. Ugh, it's pretty ugly. But go back to 2048 because I do like that actually. But yeah. I'll show y'all textures. This is actually pretty cool. Right now, I'm just showing y'all how this stuff works because I haven't actually, I'm about to start working on the map really soon. I'm just trying to get things in order, like the water system and all that, before I start jumping into other things. But yeah. All right. So to do textures, we just go to output and click on textures. Okay. Let me just put it back to 512 because it's taking forever. Because of the erosion. That's why it's taking so long. Erosion is a very intensive process. All right, the 512 is done. Go to output and then click on textures. As you tell, now we got like a checkerboard pattern. Okay, but to emphasize how this stuff works, I'm just gonna do just a really quick, I guess you could say, test, just so I can show y'all what's actually going on. I like showing people this kind of stuff because so y'all have an idea of how this stuff actually works. Okay, so I believe the one I want to do is maybe this one. I think it's this. Yes, this one. Okay, so as you can tell, we got some nice little detailed sand down here, but the problem is you can tell it's just covering everything, which in this case, since it's underwater, that would be fine, but you would still technically want some variations of things. For example, like on these little these steep inclines, you'd want some smooth sediments going down it, so that way it's not just looking like the flat ground texture. So how we do that is we go to layers for the textures and add another layer. But for this case, I'm just gonna, well, maybe this one. Yeah, we'll do smooth sand. But as you can tell, nothing has changed whatsoever. It still looks exactly the same. So how we can get around that, if we can get another curve node. So we get the curve of the actual height values. And we plug it into smooth. So now we got it hooked up to the new smooth texture right here. But as you can tell, nothing has changed still. It looks exactly the same. So what we can do is we can double click and add a new point. As you can tell, there's some differences happening. And it still doesn't seem right. As you can tell, it just looks like it's covering everything still. Which in some cases that would work. It actually looks kind of good, but the problem is it's doing it pretty much everywhere. So another thing we can do is we can go to create map, and then we can do a slope, which you probably have an idea of what this actually means by just hearing the word slope. But in case you don't, essentially we're getting angled values. So something that's 45 degrees to 90 degrees in an actual angle on the surface, that's what it will start to affect. So if we come to output and drag it into here, as you can tell, it just went back to the regular, terrain texture that we had before. Okay, so obviously none of those are within 45 to 90 degrees. Okay, but as you can tell, looks like it starts changing. Like texture, colors. Looks one's brighter and one's darker. It's starting to slightly want to work, but it's not fully there yet. So what we can do, just to emphasize the example, is change 45 to like 25. So there, now we can see it. So now on these sharp angles, it's putting more of a, this isn't exactly a good quality texture. This is one of my originals. But you can see exactly what I'm trying to say, I hope. It hits a certain angle on the surface, and it replaces the texture with this one. Okay? So it gets some variations in the actual terrain itself. That way it's not one solid texture, or in this case, a layer. So we got our base layer, which is the sediment layer, which I'm going to have to make another texture for that. This will be more closer to the beaches, I guess you could say, this type of sand. And we have sediment layers and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, and the same thing works with objects like trees, or I could give it a set of rules to where it spawns like corals in a certain spot or in a certain texture, certain height, certain angle, and yeah. So just for testing, I go to objects, and I'm not going to be doing it this way. By the way, I want to hand place all these objects because this isn't exactly a perfect system when it comes to doing objects. It's good just to get a base layer, I guess you can say, an initial set of objects that will just be easier to just paint with this. And then later on, I go and do the really high detailed sculpting, I guess you could say. I put a rock here and there, that kind of thing. So, yeah. So, as you can tell, nothing pops up. I'm not sure why that does that, but you just got to drag one in for some reason sometimes. So if we come to prefabs, we'll do rocks and boulders. We'll put the rock I've been working on in it. Okay. As you can tell, still there's nothing there. Okay. It's just a terrain. That's it. That's because we haven't told it to put the rocks yet. Okay. So what we can do is we can come to create, yeah, objects right here, and do a scatter node. Okay. And plop that in there. And as you can tell, we've got a few rocks on the map now. Camera's too fast now. So we'll put it back at 1 because I don't want it too fast in this case. But as you can tell, it's really small. And that's because we got to do regard prefab scale. So there, now our rocks, in the proper size, the base size, should I say. But as you can tell, let me find another rock real quick. You can tell by the angle on this, it's that angle. It's exactly the same angle on every one of them. And the reason is because right now we're just scattering a bunch of rocks and that's it. It's not doing nothing else. Okay. So to get around that, we go back to create objects and then we go to, it's been a while since I've done this actually. I believe it'll be adjust. I'm just looking real quick. Yeah, adjust. Okay, cool. Alright. So what we'd actually do now is we'd hook the scatter into the adjust and then the adjust into here. Okay, but as you can tell, the rotation is still 0 and 0. As you can tell, that rock just flipped. Okay, pay attention to the angle on it. Okay. Not all the same. Some of them, slightly flipped. Some of them, slightly turned. And it's all based on the seed too, so you can make these things pretty random. So right now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's changes. You can also, change the heights it starts off at. You can offset things. But yeah, I'll put that back down to 0. You can make it, give random scale sizes. So you make some rocks bigger, some rocks smaller, that kind of thing. But yeah, I really hope this was insightful for y'all. I just wanted to show y'all sort of some of the things that goes into doing all this. That way you have an idea. It's just ways to speed up the process. And yeah, if y'all have any questions, feel free to ask. Yeah, all right, y'all take care. Talk to you later.